All right, let's talk about building homes and all of the things that home builders have to do when it comes to meeting code and the types of code they have to adhere to. And this is an important conversation. Of course, you're seeing a lot of questions about what happened overseas with the earthquake and the tens of thousands of people who died, and now they're starting to question their building codes over in Turkey and in Syria. We don't have necessarily all of the earthquake activity here in central Illinois, though it's possible. However, there are building codes that have been in place and that get modified regularly and that builders have to stay up to date with. And there's some things coming down the pike, not just in Springfield, but at the Illinois State House. And to talk about that and more, joining me in studio is Dean Graven. He is with the Springfield Area Home Builders Association. You're also with a whole bunch of other groups that help build homes. Dean, thanks for taking time with us this morning. How you been?
Very good, Greg. Thank you for having us.
No, absolutely. So let's get right into it because there's a lot to tackle here. When it comes to building homes, you guys have to, ensure you get a proper foundation, ensure that all the hookups are there and properly done, and then it's, stick building it from there until you get to some place that people are going to call their home for the next 20 to 30 years, possibly, if not for the rest of their life. But let's I guess, start locally because there's things coming up this week at Springfield City Hall that you are hoping to address. What do you got on the docket?
Well, one is not the construction of homes, but it's the subdivision. Back in 1998, there was a thing called a developers agreement, and that was for the developers to improve city streets. I don't know if you know, but in a subdivision, the developer pays for everything: the water, the sewer, the gas lines, the streets, street signs. I mean, the city doesn't pay for anything when a subdivision comes in. But it's the road that gets you to that subdivision, which the city could have owned for a couple years. Illustration, we've got two they've owned for 20, 25, 50 years. So this this is a bill tomorrow, I guess an ordinance, and it's called the Subdivision Site Suitability. We finally came to an agreement. We thought we had one in 2021. It failed with a developer, and he had to come up with $115 additional $1,000, which it was a road outside of his subdivision. So now this one will be presented to the council committee of a whole tomorrow night. It's huge. It will help us as developers and for our community to grow and build those roads. In 1998 to 2000, we didn't build one road in front of a subdivision because it was too complicated. Then we got the modification in 21. We built 3 outside of the subdivisions. Now we're trying to tweak it and get it so it goes within 3 to 5 years. So it's there. It's ready to go. That's number one. That's huge.
Number one to be brought up when it comes to builders at Springfield City Council Tuesday.
It's only taken me 17 years to get this far. I'm a little slow. So anyway, number 2, and this one I think everybody can identify to. It's what they call drive-through stacking. So you see all the cars backing up at Starbucks or Chick-fil-A or whatever. But we had one ordinance for any type of business. Well, it didn't match. So we did a study, and we were the only city in central Illinois, Decatur, Champaign-Urbana, Bloomington, Normal, Peoria, customized the stacking based on the business plan and the traffic. So a food beverage service is one, auto car washes, coin-operated car washes, financial institution, and other. So now we have 5 categories, and it makes more sense. I don't know if you go through a drive-through anymore at a bank. Very few people do. They bank online, so forth. So we hate going for variances. I mean, you're very familiar.
All the time. And sometimes they can take up sometimes they can take up a substantial amount of time at a council meeting, but they're there because they have to have some kind of modification to what they're allowed to do.
And I said on the zoning, I'm a zoning commissioner, so you have a process for a business owner. It could take 6 months to get a variance, and it blows the business plan. So now we have that. That's number 2. Number 3 was a simple road design. I could leave it. You can put it on your website. Very detailed, very complicated. Engineer times 2. You got to be a wizard. We finally have a common one, which is great. It was always negotiated.
Well, and this is for residential developments or
roads in general.
Okay.
So when a subdivision goes in, the engineer not only designs that road, but then has to agree and work with the city to design that road outside of the subdivision. So you have that connectability. That's a key word in development. And then last is the 2018 building codes. And that gets into a little bit of what you're discussing. Codes are changed every 3 years. That's too fast. 2021 codes were changed. By 2022, November 22, we had 192 changes.
Wow.
There are 15 code books. They stack about 1.5 feet tall, and I'm not exaggerating. So 2 years ago, the county, the city, and the development policy said we're going to get on the same book. County adopted the 2018 and 22. City got delayed, and now we're adopting it. So we think tomorrow night, if they approve it, we'll be on the same code cycle, 2018, and then every 6 years we adopt the new codes, which keeps us current with the issue. Could be, I guess, earthquakes. I have earthquake insurance. You're going to have one here in Illinois someday.
Someday, right.
But all of those things. And that way, if I'm on a road, here's the city on the right side and the county's on the left, the houses are going to be built to the same standards, same rules. So
right.
This is very, very exciting. So
when it comes to the changing of the codes, talk a bit about that. And as far as, are these international codes? Are they national, state codes? And why is it that you've got this universality to it when you've got different soil makeup in different places, you've got different climates in different places? Why is there that universality?
Well, it is the international ICC and all of those, and I didn't bring the whole list, but in those codes, and we'll talk about energy. So the state of Illinois has zones. So you have like Zone 1 in Chicago and Zone 10 in Cairo. So that heating and cooling standards are modified by page to affix to you, and we're going to get into that here in a Senate bill and a House bill because they're really trying to make houses so tight they won't breathe, and then you got to bring in cool air to it's complicated again. But you're right, they're international codes so that we don't have these. You go off into Montana or down to Florida. Florida has the strictest building codes I can think of because of the hurricanes.
Right. So
they have different roof clips and blocking that we won't have. So the codes do have geographic changes to them. But then there's a standard of what is a 2x4, which, by the way, is not 2 inches by 4 inches.
We're talking with Dean Graven. He is an expert in the building space, longtime builder himself, and somebody who is keeping an eye on all things that are happening, not just at City Hall, but also at the Illinois State House. Dean, we have talked before in the past about some of the things that they're looking to do at the State House, in particular when it comes to homes and electric vehicle hookups. A bill that was proposed last year did not advance.
Correct.
I remember talking with you about that, but it's a new General Assembly. It's a new day. What's going on here?
Well, I think you and I were talking off air that there's just short of 4,000 new bills that have been presented since they're back in office, which is mind-boggling to me. But there is a House Bill 2206 and a Senate Bill 0040, so Senate Bill 40. And it's a demand, again, a mandate with no funding behind it, a mandate that every new house, single-family duplex, then it gets into multifamily, would have to have electric car charging stations. Well, not all cars are charged at the same level. And keep it level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 can plug into a 110 outlet. Okay. And it might take 6 hours to 20 hours. But a level 3, and I'll use Tesla or even the Rivian truck, you have to have about 220 outlet, 240, 220, and it will charge faster, and it cannot be plugged into a 110. So you're looking at substantial cost difference between a 110 outlet and 220. You're even asking for more power to come into the house. Our homes are built with 200 amp. If they got their original mandate for every parking space, this was their original, so a 3-car garage would have to have a level 3, and we've worked through this so far. You'd have to have more, so CWLP would have to bring more, which demand on our power plant, it got very complicated. We're negotiating. We'd prefer not to have a mandate, but we're trying to come up with something that we can live with.
Well, and thinking about how we've got these building codes that the city of Springfield's hoping to update to get on a little bit more of a longer cycle than 3 years. Obviously, building codes change, and obviously electric vehicle charging is going to change in the future. So is this something that should be up to individual homeowners as to maybe, post build, they then decide, okay, I want an electric charging port in my home? Is that the best way to go, or should there be some standards spelled out?
Well, the thing that would happen there is that to retrofit would be even more expensive. So they have the right mindset if we're going to be EV cars 100% someday. So we were proposing to run what they call conduit, and you could fish wires from the breaker box to whatever location or free numbers that you need. A lot less expensive. And then the consumer says, I don't have one, I'm never going to buy one, so I don't have to spend any more money. Now, I did drive the cost of that house up a little bit. Here's a little fact information. For every $1,000 price increase on a home, you knock out 6,000 buyers. That came from the National Banking Association, lenders. So every time you drive a price up, you drive more buyers away. So the American dream to own a home is getting very, very difficult. I was in my first phase back 25 years ago, I could build a house for $100 a square foot. I'm over $220 a square foot today, and it's only going up.
Dean Graven, he is, of course, an established builder in the community and somebody who's keeping an eye on all of this. You had talked previously, and, of course, we could still see new legislation filed. The Senate deadline to file bills was Friday. The House deadline to file bills, so there still could be more bills filed. That's coming up this Friday, so still possible that there could be more bills. You had mentioned before that something as far as, what was it called? The
Stretch Energy Code?
No, punch-outs or knockouts, or for like commercial buildings if a fire has to get there. And
okay.
What are those?
Knock boxes.
Knock boxes.
Okay. Well, that was in the 2018 code. So commercial, they're required to have a knock box. It's a way to get into the commercial building business without breaking doors. In the fire code, which is buried in the 2018 codes, the city had knock boxes on houses, and I'm like, that's not going to work.
Wow.
So Ed, I forgot Ed's last name, the fire chief, we had a great meeting. We are going to do a public service through the home builders, the realtors, and the fire department, so that if you had somebody with a mobility issue or an older relative and you didn't live close by, they can go to the fire department and get these home knock boxes. They're not going to be demanded. They're not going to be required on every new house like they thought. And this is great. This is what we want people to have, is a service that we can provide more safety for them as they age, and not for every house that may never have a mobility issue or a senior citizen live in it.
Well, these are obviously things that you are in the know-how, and appreciate you taking time to share it with our audience. We'll be tracking that stuff, especially at the State House, but we'll likely hear you during the council roundup on Wednesday when you meet with the council members on Tuesday. So greatly appreciated as always, and stay in touch. And I imagine we'll see you at the Home Expo as well.
Yes and no. I'm more involved at the state, so I will be over there. Yeah. It's this weekend. I'm excited. It looks like the weather's good. I think they've got a good layout. But I've been really, as a president of the state last year, I'm on the board. I've got so much to stay up with at the state.
State House,
my plate, and I got zoning Wednesday night. So somehow.
Well, I appreciate you keeping us posted, because it's the legislature's just getting started, and you do have thousands and thousands of bills that have been filed, and being able to sift through all of that, it's good to hear from the experts. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's